demographics, do we actually need that? Because that takes up a whole half a page.
That's another question. You can certainly, if you're one of the ones that Chief and I discussed is the frequency in voting in town elections, that might not be crucial for you. In other contexts, people like that, but if it's not that important to you, then we'll cut that out.
So I guess,
I mean, I think some demographics, maybe the household incomes and stuff like that, or that particular one, I mean, I don't know if, I wouldn't really say something like this, gender. I haven't noticed in our community that gender really plays a big role in votes. Usually comes down to dollars and issue.
Right.
well, I guess, so if we know how different households, from an income perspective, feel about it, like what does that?
Oh, I agree with the income one. I think the income would be a good one to ask, but some of the other stuff,
I'm just saying, like, what does that get us? Similar to, like, there's the question 18 about, how many firefighters, or district employees do you know? I mean, I guess we would be able to get, a difference in baseline between people who are more associated or familiar with the district versus those who aren't. But I'm not sure how that helps us as far as, messaging or targeting.
Yeah, I think we need to keep in mind why we're doing this, and that's to try to get a pulse of the community as far as what are they willing to tolerate financially, as well as what guidance can they give us with respect to putting forth a proposal that is viable. So I don't want to eliminate any question that helps us to answer those. It's kind of a general statement, but.
Can I make a suggestion that'll help this? Why don't we go through each question and we kind of rank it and say absolutely necessary, or could be cut,
Okay.
or could be shortened, that, just so that we,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yeah, start at the top.
Start at the top.
Sean, can you share the questionnaire on your screen?
Will do. Can everyone see that okay?
We don't see the, there it
There
is.
you go.
Yeah.
that's a better format than I have.
So one of the comments you had was to basically delete what we saw right there.
Yeah. So, or I would recommend cutting this down quite a bit. Like I said, this is stuff that people probably aren't going to read. And some of these things probably are nice for people to know, but probably aren't urgent for them to know. And some they might already know, so that would be particularly something that you could get rid of if you think that that's widely known.
I mean, it would probably be easier from like a readability standpoint and take up less space if we just had like a bullet list of, important facts we want people to know from the paragraphs.
Which are actually in question 2, but we could just make them, I mean, you can ask whether they know it or not. People don't like to be tested on a survey.
Yeah.
But you could have those items, because those items are right up there in that text. It's a duplication, if you look at it.
This is more, Q2 is more what I would suggest if you are interested in putting these in here in the first place. So we have both in there right now, but we definitely want to either cut one or both of these, Q2 or the introduction. But like I said, right with Q2, you get the benefit of seeing where people are beforehand, and simultaneously you're telling them these facts. So it's a little bit more, you're getting more purposes out of it for the same amount of space. And as you can see here, it's pretty tight in terms of spatially, it's pretty compact. This is a little bit more, I think I could see people just, looking right over it, saying there's a lot of things in here. Doesn't really seem important because it's before the survey. I'm just going to skip down to here. So that's why I was suggesting here would make more sense. And we could add on to this because we would have more space if we cut this out. But if you'd rather just have it up here, then I would suggest getting rid of Q2.
I mean, the second paragraph that begins with TNFD, that little 3-sentence one there, that actually contains a lot of info that is pertinent to the survey. I know the first larger paragraph is a lot of history, well, not history, but
But the question too, I mean, we do have some space in the lines that we might be able to squeeze something in, like Tilton as a fire station located on Center Street, and you could put in parentheses, 18 full-time, or somehow you might be able to get some of that in these question 2, just for information. I like the idea of keeping question 2 versus the paragraph, because I think he's right. I think people are going to gloss over the paragraph.
So if we're going to keep question 2, I think we should take the entries from question 14 and just make that part of question 2, since they're the same format. They seem to be related, and there seems to be some overlap.
it's a different.
Oh, they are the
Oh,
same.
yeah.
Well, because one is
Oh, I
before
see, yeah, I see
today,
what
did you
you're
know?
Yep, I see what you're saying, yeah, they are before today. Yeah.
Because I feel like that could get us a lot more density, since we don't have all of the formatting around separate tables and separate question entries.
Right. I mean, you could even, some of those on 14, you can combine in question 2 in the same question. Like, for instance, the very first one, or the Park Street, you can put is an unmanned station right in that question B.
Because if you look, there's 2 lines for each sub-question, right, A, B, C, D. And that's so that we can go over to don't know, not sure. Whereas we have over half a line available
Right.
within those
Within
questions.
things.
So if we condense the questions, we can still fit them in the same amount of space.
The only thing that you should bear in mind with that is that we want to make sure that these questions don't end up being double-barreled. We ideally want them to be discrete things that someone can either know or not have known. If there are multiple things and someone knew one aspect but not another, it's not immediately clear how they're supposed to answer. So if they knew that there's a fire station but they didn't know it was manned 24/7, some people might that as if I didn't know both parts, then I didn't know it. Some people might circle in between yes and no. We get that. So ideally, what we want to do is try to keep these as discrete items as much as possible.
So I mean, we could focus on just trying to get A through F into single line questions, and then that would allow us to essentially double the number of questions in that same amount of space.
Except,
Extract.
yeah, okay, if we did that, perfect.
Well, because we can also remove the 98, if that becomes a 3, that gets us a little bit of space.
Well, but do we even need to know? I mean, somebody either knows it or they don't. Did you know? You say yes or no. Don't know, not sure. That doesn't make. Does it?
That's kind of someone rejecting the question effectively. But these are kind of the little things that, like I mentioned before, if we're kind of close towards the end, I can make some little adjustments like this. I can squeeze that down together. But for now, there's some more kind of substantive, big things in terms of is this important to you? There's some of these things later on the chief and I mentioned that I've suggested strongly that we cut. So we don't have to get fully stuck just on one question, because the decisions that you'll make about whether you want to keep something or not keep something will be informed by the decisions we make elsewhere. If everything later on in the survey you want to keep, then we really have to do a lot of work here. But if there's a lot of stuff later on in the survey that you decide, oh, well, that's not important, then we can get rid of that, and we don't have to be as strict here in terms of space. So if something's a little bit unclear, then that's okay, and we can try to kind of roll back and figure out further how to do this. We don't have to be fully done with this by the end of the night. Typically, we go through a lot more iterations than this. So if there's, I think generally speaking, it's just trying to get an idea from all of you about how important everything is. And like I said, if there's some things that you just are demonstrably not very important to you, then that'll make things a lot easier.
Chief, do you have a copy of this document with Sean's comments?
No, it doesn't print out, for me, I couldn't get it to print legibly.
If you printed it,
You would have to view it essentially on your computer in Google Docs in
Well, I
order to see it well.
I guess my point is Sean has taken the time to put these comments in it, and I have not seen that, so I haven't had the opportunity to review it. The chief had mentioned that he was gonna bring copies tonight, so.
I guess do we just want to move to question 3 at this point?
or we can see his comments, so why don't we just go through them?
Well, can I just, one other point? Do we need to keep typing out Tilton Northville Fire and EMS, or can we start using an abbreviation?
TNFD.
Yeah, let's just
Yeah.
use TNFD.
And I'm looking like
Oh, yeah,
A and B. Why can't you say like Tilton Moorfield Fire and EMS has a fire station located Center Street, Tilton,
yeah.
and Park Street, Moorfield? That alleviates all, I mean, that's what we have. Were you aware? I mean, essentially, we have 2 fire stations to ask 2 different questions. Can we roll that? And, I'm just looking, because obviously, we haven't
Well, they might
decided.
be aware that there's one station but not another station.
Yeah,
Okay, what I want to focus on tonight is getting Sean's input and not keeping Sean here all night, so. And Nate, I'm not diminishing your comment, I'm just saying, for now, let's focus on, Sean's input. So, if we go to, so is everybody content at question 2 and question 14? We're probably gonna consolidate and try to fit into one line,
Yeah, I think they all should be under question 2.
okay? All right, Sean, can you move to question 3, please? Okay, that one is, I think,
Do we
gonna stay.
need 3 and 4, no preference, don't know, not sure, since they both say skip to question 6?
I would suggest having that, yes. There is a difference, I think, between
Okay.
someone just not really having an opinion at all because they haven't thought about it, and people who just say that they doesn't matter to them which town it's in. Those are, I would think, distinct enough that you would want to be able to differentiate between those.
And I'm all set with the question as written.
I'm okay with that.
With question 3 or the whole questionnaire?
Question 3.
Question 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
you guys threw me for a loop there, jumping all the way to the end. Okay. Any other questions on question 3, you guys? Okay, let's go to 4, please, Sean.
So you were asking about why they would prefer that facility be built there. As we mentioned in Q3, we're having to skip this, but they don't have a preference or they don't know.
So if they do, are they circling the letter? Is that what you're asking? Which,
Yep.
please
So we could
select.
consolidate that to single space, right?
Yeah, we can do a little bit here in terms of, yeah, you can probably get it a little close. Yeah. We don't want it to be too small, something like that is probably reasonable. Without any space at all, we do run into some legibility problems. People not being having the best fine motor skills with circling and stuff like that, and we want to leave room for the other as well. But like I said, if we're pretty close, I can try to make things work to squeeze it all down. But right now, we still have a little bit of ways to go.
Would it make sense to have like those like Scantron circles that you fill in next to the entries versus having them circle the entries?
Yeah, so we have looked into this a bit with paper surveys, and people generally don't really like the Scantron
Okay.
things. It's more labor intensive to kind of go like this. And just like with voting, actually, you run into this problems of people not fully circling something or Xing it out. It's a bit of a mess, particularly because we don't have a Scantron to do it. We're going to have our interviewers actually look at it themselves. So we found that circling is generally the best option.
Rather than a line where they check it, so you say, please check all that apply.
Yeah,
Okay.
similarly there, it tends to be a little bit better, especially when people can associate it with have a letter or a number that's associated with it. It also makes it a lot easier for our interviewers to put the surveys when they have those kind of reference points.
So where it says please select, should you say please circle?
Yeah, I mean, we can change it to that if you'd like.
I don't know, I'm just, which is more clear? Yes.
Circle's probably more direct. That's kind of my standard verbiage on the web, but yeah, circle, make a good point. It's probably good. It's more precise, so
Okay.
I'll switch that throughout.
It's back.
On question 5, could we eliminate the wording, would emergency response times or costs of construction be more important? Could we just say which is more important?
Yeah, we can do that.
And that would save one line.
Can I go back to question 4?
Sorry.
Where did those those choices come from? Did we provide those?
Yeah, so this is built off some of the stuff that you guys sent over, but they can certainly change or be taken out or have something added in. That's just based on the best guess that I could put together based on the material you guys sent. But obviously, you know the facts on the ground and what's plausible and what's feasible so much better than I do. So if something needs tweaking or just outright changing, let me know. We're still, like I said, very early on in the process. Sometimes we can go back and forth for a very long time with this whole process. And at this point in the process, pretty early on, we're still very fungible. Things can be changed quite a bit.
So we can review that later
Yeah.
if we want to change any of that. Okay, question 5. That looks good. And we're going to replace any place where it says Tilton Northfield Fire and EMS, we're going to put TNFD.
Okay.
Okay, question 6, how important are the following factors? I guess in 6 and 5, aren't they really asking the same thing?
Well, one is just
Which is
response
more
time
important?
versus overall cost, and 6 is more like,
Or could we include emergency response times in 6 and get rid of 5?
Well, you're asking which is more important, whereas the other one is asking how you feel about it.
yeah, so 5 lets us know which, so we are assuming those 2 are the most important factors, and we want to know which of them is the most, whereas question 6 is getting people's,
Well, why couldn't we just put,
Oh, I guess, yeah, I see your point. It
They're
could
both
be, it could be in
asking-
6,
about the importance?
right.
In question 5, we're only including 2 important factors. In question 6, we're asking 5. And if we added
Emergency response
emergency
time
response
there.
times,
yes, but
What do
for
you think?
question 6, someone could select very important for every single entry.
Yeah, and that is something that we do see. There's kind of importance inflation, unfortunately, that it does kind of obscure things sometimes when people just say everything's important.
I wasn't opposed to question 5, I just wondered if that was the right location for it. Is that more of a, after you work down through the questionnaire, then you sort of ask that? But again, we can talk about migrating that to a different location if we feel it's...
well, I guess, to me there, it's repetitive. I understand in question 6, your point is you could choose very important for all of them. And we're trying to grade the importance.
So I guess to that point, 5, 6, and 7, they're asking some of the same questions. One is just, stack rank these from 1 to 6. The other is you know,
Well, what if we added emergency response times to question 6 and graded them like we're doing in question 7? Please rank.
but I would almost argue then, do we just remove 5 and 6 and add some of those to 7?
I don't think you can. 7's picking a location.
Yeah,
It's a
seven's-
different content.
Yeah, 7 is a different sort of, there's a different object there. There we're giving people specific
Right.
options that you might propose. 5 and 6 we're getting more at the idea of just importance in general. One thing that we could do is we can just switch them, or we could just take 5 out entirely. If we were doing it on the web, there'd be a little bit more sophisticated ways to do this, but unfortunately with paper, we're a little bit limited in terms of display logic and things like that. But there certainly is some kind of duplication in here. Part of that is because I'm working off of the material you guys sent, which is from a bunch of you, and some of you had kind of overlapping ideas, and rather than fully adjudicating them myself and deciding this one's better than this one, I'm not going to cast that other one out entirely. A lot of stuff's represented here so that you guys can choose between it, and that way you can make that decision rather than for you personally. So if there's stuff you want to consolidate, please feel free to do so. It's perfectly fine, but there will be some duplication here.
Yeah, I think most people in question 5 are going to say both. So 5 probably belongs in 6.
I feel like
It's,
if we're combining the 2 questions, we should add emergency response times to 6 and then make that a stack rank. So that way we can still know, is response time or construction more important, but then we also get some other factors as well.
well, I think most people want the answer to both. They want to know what is the cost and what is the response time. So I don't think you're going to get the answer from the survey, the way we've written it. Because they both are important, right? Most people are going to say both are very important.
But that doesn't tell us anything though.
That's my point.
So like,
Neither do-
So I think the idea there with Q5 and the reason it's included in the first place, I believe, is to try to force people to choice. So this is something that we do in surveys quite a bit. We sometimes see, people answer surveys about public policy. They'll say, I'd like to pay lower taxes, and I'd like to have more services, and I'd like no debt, please. And all those things, coherent, they're mutually exclusive. So that's why we often, in a context, we often frame questions like this, so that you have to choose which of these is more important, and that can help guide your decision-making of, well, of course, both things are important. We both love for the emergency response time to be quick and for it not to be expensive. But if those things are in tension, then you have to choose between them, which is more important to you. I think if we do keep it, looking at it again, it might make sense to just switch 5 and 6 if we do want to keep them. And that way, we're kind of making it a little less redundant to the respondent by saying, okay, we've asked you how important it is in the broad aspects, but just these 2 main things, which of these is more important regardless of how you just answer?
That's a good point.
Yep, good point.
Yep.
So if we keep question 5 as it is, that answers whether or not the cost or location/response time is more important. And question 7, we're talking about preferences for options in specific towns. We're asking about consolidating to a single facility. We may not need question 6. 5 and 7 may answer what's in question 6 in a way that gives us more useful data. Because someone can't just go, well, the cost, the location, and making sure we have a station in both towns is very important to me.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly do that if you prefer.
Yeah, I think when we shorten it to TNFD and all that, it's one line, why not leave the question? And move it like he said. I don't think it hurts to have it in there now.
Right, I'm saying get rid of question 6, not question 5.
Oh, no, I like question 6. I think it
I can see
kind
Nate's point,
of
though.
makes them,
Because, I mean, you're gonna glean a lot of that information. I mean, when you start giving everybody options, and then, I mean, especially after they've already answered, it's question 4, right? Mine's a little off, so I'm gonna reread it. Yeah, so it's question 4, you know, you're gleaning a lot of information from there, and then, it was where to build, where would you prefer this built, then, why would you prefer it be built there? I mean, you're gleaning that, and then, I don't know, I think it comes through, I don't know, I mean, I can see it both ways, but I think it's, 6 does become somewhat, I wouldn't say redundant, but it's asked and answered in several other questions.
well, except you're skipping to 6 if you have no preference. You miss 4 and 5
Oh.
according to this.
We could have them skip right to 7,
Yeah,
but,
can
or we
change
could just
it,
not have
skip
them
it.
skip. We could just have them skip 4 and go right to 5. I just don't think there's much value in the information in question 6 unless we stack rank it, at which point those items might as well be added to question 7, and some of those, if not all of them, are already represented in question 7.
Well, the Q6 and Q7, I don't think would mix well, because 6 is asking abstracts, kind of parameters, and how important those things are to you, whereas 7 is asking about actual options that you prefer for this whole project, or for everything you're asking. One of the options, bear in mind, is just make no changes at all. So this is less, Q6 is more asking about what items are informing your preferences, and Q7 is those actual preferences. What things do you actually want to do? Now, if your point is we can infer from Q7 what effectively they think about Q6, or if they're telling us Q7, then Q6 isn't really important, it's just the Q7 thing, then we can certainly cut that, but I don't think they'll mix well.
But my point to Nate's point there is, if somebody answers, I wanna build in both towns, you pretty much answered B and C. If somebody says, I just want it in one town, or one location, you've answered D. And then overall proposal cost, that's gonna be answered down, when we get further down, you're looking at, you know, how much you wanna spend. And then consolidating it, I mean, again, D, we said we answered that one.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
selection A for question 7 is essentially question D from selection D from question 6.
What do you say for the cost?
Well, no, because if,
Question 6,
would you
D.
Oh, yeah,
consolidate to a
yeah,
single
consolidate to a
facility,
single
very
facility.
important. If you rank A as number 1 in question 7, that is, consolidating to a single facility is the most important thing. That being said, I'm fine leaving the 2 questions. We can do this as part of like another.
What's that, Sean?
That certainly does make sense, and it's certainly something that I think it's logical to infer. I think the issue is that people's opinions are often more kind of discordant and not really as neat as we usually assume that they are. Someone might say, especially people who haven't given this much thought, they might say in the abstract, consolidating down to a single facility, that's efficient. I like that. That's very important to me. But then when they're presented with, okay, well, here are some of the options, they might look at one of them and say, oh, I didn't know that even was an option. I like that. Or they might say, especially because one of the options here is do nothing, that's another one. They might think consolidate is great, but actually realistically, more than anything else, I want to do nothing whatsoever. So that's the thing is that, like I said, that makes a lot of sense, but sometimes we get really weird responses that don't make any sense to us. So that's, I think, one of the reasons we might want to either have some version of 5 or 6 or both of them remaining, so that gives you a little bit of extra context into how people answer in Q7.
I think the most important question out of those three is number 7, answer F. How many people actually prioritize that box?
It's an important one to ask,
It is
Yeah.
important.
because that's what they've been doing for the last whatever.
Right, 20
Yeah,
years.
you definitely want to have that there, because otherwise people will have no means of expressing that. And especially with a paper survey, unlike a web survey, where if you don't give people the ability to express something, they might get mad. With a paper survey, they're going to find somewhere on the paper to try to express that and also be mad. So you definitely want to give them an option to say effectively nothing. And you can even see that with some of the other options we have right here, where we say like no reason here. We have this in here because sometimes people will just say, it's just because I feel that way, and you're making the circle something that basically is nothing. But here, I think that this is even more substantive, that if someone authentically wants to do nothing, I think that's at least very important for you guys to be aware of.
Are you having success over there, Chief?
I'm trying to see if I can get maybe one of the TVs to work, if I give it input to one of the TVs and see if it'll come out of the speaker there.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll work on 5, 6, and 7 and see if we can still prioritize and reduce any duplicity. Anything else on 5, 6, or 7, guys? Okay, let's go to 8.
This is just for the people who said their first choice is to do nothing. This is just to kind of elucidate better why they're feeling that way. And again, if these options don't seem exhaustive,
You're gonna have that plug the,
Yeah.
stand by, Sean, we're having
Yeah, technical
Yeah.
difficulties.
Trying to improve it, and I made it worse.
There you go, I'll plug it back in, you should be good.
My comment on that is we probably should put the letter F in there. Answer only if first choice is F. Make no changes.
Really, bro.
It's coming up over
There it is.
There we
here.
go.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Anything with a paper survey especially, yeah, any clarifying information like that you can think of is good to include, because it's, like I said, it's different than with a web survey where kind of the platform can constrain them a little bit for us. With this, it's easier for people to get confused and not realize they've got confused, unfortunately.
Okay, so question 8, would you prefer making changes?
Now, why would every one of them skip question 9? Because we're talking about cost. You see how on the question 7, when you rate them, it says skip to Q10.
I think this is just because I didn't update this correctly from what I remember. So yeah,
So it'd be Q9?
Yeah.
Okay.
The numbers change quite a bit, so it's definitely possible that some of these are antiquated like that one. So yeah, we would want them to.
I think question 8 is pretty valid.
Yes, I like 8. 8, I think.
I
Well, I'm okay with that.
Answers.
Yeah, once you follow the thought process and the questions, they all seem to have a place.
Yes. Yeah.
So we'll go to question 9.
Yeah, my comment on there, is there a way to correlate tax increase with these numbers? Most people look at those numbers and go, I'm only gonna, less than 3 million arbitrarily. But if somebody said, well, oh, my tax bill's gonna go up $200. Oh, maybe I do want to spend more. You know what I'm saying? But there's no way to relate that, is there?
Yeah, there
It'd
is.
be different in either, both towns is different, it would affect
It
differently.
would we could just put T equals $10, N equals $5 or whatever.
With those.
Yeah,
But what he's saying is correct, each town,
right.
well, no, the increase would be the same, right? No?
No,
It would
because
be-
Tilton pays 70%. So, but it would allow us to quantify the tax increase based upon those numbers, which I think is a very good point.
That's what most people look at. You look at a big number, okay, how's that gonna affect my taxes?
Right.
And you may get more out of it than you think, where people go, oh, it's only a couple $100 a year? Okay, maybe it's way more than that, I don't know, I'm just showing the number
I
out.
think maybe the best thing we could come up with that for every, well, because we don't know how long we're gonna finance. There's so many variables. If we're gonna finance over 10 years, finance over 20 years or longer, that changes the amount that it would affect your tax rate per thousand, per se. You
And it
know,
also
I-
affects the cost though, too.
Yeah, it affects the cost overall
With the
because you're
interest
paying
rate,
more
yeah.
interest over a longer period of time. If you say, for every $1 million, you'd have to have a graph. If you're gonna finance it for $1 million in Tilton over 10 years, this is how much it would affect your tax rate per thousand. If you do it in Northfield, it's a different number per thousand. If you do it for 20 years for every $1 million, it's so much per thousand. That's depending upon, you know, what do we get for an interest rate, things like that. Until we have the final numbers, it's really hard to pin down.
You don't get too far in the weeds for a survey on.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, people are automatically gonna go to one, because they don't know how it's gonna affect their taxes.
So you prefer, rather than have $1 million number up there, have a tax amount number?
Or just next to the say 4 million, in, like Paul was saying, put in parentheses, tax increase, or,
I think the issue is we don't know what those numbers are.
well, we don't know the well, okay.
I
We do
mean,
know the
and-
construction
And I would
cost.
almost say like,
I mean, you could
3
calculate
and
it.
4 million shouldn't be in there.
Right. But I was gonna say the same
Like,
thing.
the lowest number should be like, whatever the cheapest proposal
Yes.
we've put forward has been.
That's true.
Right. I mean, given an option that's just never gonna happen is kind of ridiculous.
All right, well, we should
We'll visit. that.
revisit question 9.
Sean, what do you recommend in your experience?
I mean, it is very difficult. I certainly agree that ideally, if you could find a way to say, this would mean this amount of, this many dollars per $1,000 value on your home, that would be ideal. That would be very hard, though, to do in general. On a paper survey, it's bordering on impossible. This is one of those questions that was on kind of the raw material that you guys sent over, and it seemed like something good to present. But for all the reasons that you're talking about, the fact that it's a big number, people just balk at it and say, my goodness, it's so much. I don't like that at all. And then giving you results that are basically impossible for you to work with. You know, if I had put less than $100,000 on there, people would be like, great, let's do that. And then you guys are not really given any helpful information because that's impossible. So if that's the case, this might just be something that we want to cut. We do have a couple different places where we ask people how important is cost to you. If we don't need this amount of specificity because that's not really helpful for you, the cost of what it's going to cost, then maybe this is just something that we cut. Is that, and the other end of that is that if it's not something that you can do anything about, you might not want to ask it on purpose. Because one thing about surveys that you want to avoid if possible is to gather input from people, but then either because you can't or you don't want to, not do anything about it at all. So if everyone says less than 3 million, and then you come to them with proposals and say, look, they're all going to cost more than 3 million. I don't know what to tell you. We can't make it magically less. People might say, but you asked us and we told you less than 3 million. Why didn't you do it? So that might be something that might push you more towards saying, you know what, just get rid of the specific numbers.
Yeah,
I'm in favor of getting rid of this question.
I think too, because we
agree.
don't
I mean,
really
it's-
know,
yeah, we
We
got
don't
to
know.
time.
But you said you could kill the whole survey, you kill the whole process with one question.
You good with axing?
I'm good with axing that
Okay,
question.
you convinced us, John.
All right, we'll cut that for now.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Because it's,
Really, we just gave you 3 lines.
Every question you cut is kind of makes other decisions we have to make easier, because then we just have more to play with, so, that's something to bear in mind with all of these, decisions. That brings us to Q10, which has a similar thing here, that, I mentioned that this is, definitely gonna overlap with the end of Q7. These are the first 4 options on here, in Q7, but we're just asking whether people would vote yes or no on them, rather than just having them rank them. And the idea here is that you could differentiate between people who say, well, that's my first choice, and that's my second, that's my third. But you know what? I'd be fine with any of these things, absolutely. Or they might say, you know, I'd like you to make no changes. That'd be my first option. But then I'd vote for that one, I guess. Even though I don't love it, I'd vote for it. So we could get rid of Q7 or replace it with this if you prefer. We can keep both of them. We can get rid of Q10. They're a little bit overlapping, and this is kind of getting into in an ideal world, we'd have both. So it might also depend on decisions we make elsewhere about whether we have space or not. But that's the idea.
I would like to keep question 10. Maybe we can, you know, save some space just in the wording by, you know, going to TNFD, maybe changing road to RD, you know.
I'll leave it for now and move on and see if it's still worth keeping.
All right.
I like that.
You what, you like that?
I like,
Okay. And then Q11, similar idea here, that we're asking this for people, is there any scenario in which you would support a proposal for doing? And again, this is getting a little bit difficult. This is one of these where, with a web survey, things are a little bit easier. Here we're directing people to only answer if you would vote for any of these things. And this is, again, trying to get at why people who would say they want no changes, are they just implacably opposed? Do they just want to do absolutely nothing, no matter what you're proposing? Or is there some idea that they have themselves where they say, oh, I'd do that if you could do that? The idea here, like I said, is to drill down a little bit. But on the other hand, in terms of space, you might say we've covered this enough already. The other thing is that the ideas I'm going to give you here are probably not going to be very usable. I imagine that all of you having thought through this process quite a bit and having done it for quite a bit, are going to be a lot more informed than lay people about what's feasible and what isn't. So this might be helpful for them to be able to say, I have a good idea, here it is. But I sincerely doubt that someone's going to write something in there that all of you are going to say, we never thought of that before, we'll just do that. So that might be an argument against keeping Q11, Q12, or maybe just Q12, getting rid of that. But like I said, it's to try to get at these people who are kind of implacably opposed, if in fact there are those people.
Yeah, I think we need to know what percentage of voters will not vote yes on any proposal under any circumstance.
you're gonna find it out on Q10, because they'll put definitely not, definitely not, definitely not.
Yeah, so the idea here though is if they are just saying, no, I don't support any of those 4 options that you're giving me, but maybe I'll support something else, or just no, absolutely nothing. But as I said, you might just have that covered up here in Q7.
Right,
They
yeah.
said they want to no changes.
I think you could probably get rid of 12 and 11 and 12, and give us space.
I would agree. I mean, it seems a little redundant to me.
Good with the Article 11
Those
and
for now,
12.
they're still in here, so we can just
Yeah, I guess so.
undo that if you want to bring it back. But I'll delete them in the interest of giving us a better idea of how we're doing in space.
Hey, Sean, from the survey standpoint, do you guys, do a lot of people normally fill out a remark? Do you get a lot of responses?
I'm sorry?
I'm saying like for question 12, with all the surveys that you guys do, I'm sure this is not the first survey where somebody would write in a remark. Does that normally get used a lot? Do a lot of people respond that way?
Not a ton, especially with paper, because it's more laborious for people to
Right.
actually physically write something in. It also presents the problem for our interviewers, who are mostly college kids, that they have a very difficult time reading cursive or just bad handwriting. So there's definitely some drawbacks to it in general. That question too, we're only asking to a subset of a subset, right?
Right.
That's the other thing you might want to consider dropping it, is because, as you say, we're probably not going to get very many responses because it's just people who would vote no on all the options and then said, oh, but there is some option I would vote yes on. So probably not a lot of people, probably not something that I could end up coding into kind of group responses that'd be helpful. It would probably just be those individual responses you would read through. So in terms of space, it's probably not giving you a huge bang for your buck.
Right. I assumed that, but I don't want to assume, so I wanted to ask you, because I was in favor of axing that.
Okay.
So with 11 and 12 gone, would it make sense to remove don't know, not sure from the options for the above question? Because if you're not sure, you're in a probably yes or a probably not, I would assume.
I wouldn't. Like I said, one thing that I always have to tell myself with these things, or with everything, I have a political science background, and I tend to think everyone's thinking about politics at all times. And then I find out that that is very much not the case for most people. So non-attitudes are something that my boss is always telling us. You gotta always remember, most people don't know anything and don't care. And that's just with everything, you know, like I'll be like, this is a great idea, we need to ask people about this. And it's just like, no one knows what the hell you're talking about. No, we're not putting that up. Or at the very least, if you're going to, you gotta make sure that you give people the ability to say, I don't know what you're talking about, or I don't have an opinion about it. We do find that sometimes with these really interesting questions about like state policies, we will ask people, and we'll actually find that like more than half of people just say that they're neutral or they don't know, right? So just a lot of ambivalence or non-attitudes. And here I think that don't know is really important, because that should tell you that these are movable people. They're people who don't actually have firm ideas about it, they haven't thought about it that much. People who especially might be newer to the town. I come from Multiborough, and I used to go to town meeting when I was a kid all the time, and you could very much tell the difference between people who were relatively newcomers to the town and people who'd been there forever. People who were, some of them were really, really plugged into the town and knew exactly what was going on. And other people would really be like, I don't know what goes on with like the rest of this town. I've never thought of it. And that's something that I think you do want to capture. Like I said, if you don't put that in there, somebody's going to circle in the margin and write in don't know or something like that, because some people probably just won't have thought about it, or will say, I don't know, there's no numbers associated with these things. I haven't given it some thought until right now. I don't know how I would vote on that.
All right, that makes sense to me.
So we're down to question 13.
So, yeah, we're on to 13, and you put in your notes, consider cutting question 13.
Yeah, this one might be a little bit in the weeds in terms of whether people want to vote yes or no on a single option, or be able to choose between two or more options. But I don't know kind of the history of kind of the decision-making going on there, and whether this might be something people have an opinion on. I think the chief mentioned that some people had spoken about it a little bit, about having a preference one way or another. So I'll defer to all of you on how relevant this is and how important it is.
So in the past, there have been 2 fire station proposals brought up for vote at the district meeting, both of which failed. So I guess like that, the reason for asking if people want to vote on one proposal versus vote between multiple options is because we've never really given people that option and aren't sure if, if you have 2 choices or do nothing, maybe people are like, well, I'm going to choose the lesser of the 2 evils. versus you can do this or you can do nothing, just like I'll do nothing.
I don't know. I don't think as a facilities committee, we'll ever get to that point. I don't plan on giving like an A and B. You know, when we actually go to warrant, having an A or B, that's a convoluted mess, in my opinion.
Well, it's common if you know that if you have a fallback, if one warrant article's gonna fail, then you go to the next. And you can, that's been successful, and I'm trying to think of what happened.
Not within the fire district.
Not within the fire district, no. It happened in another town. I can't remember what it was. But they had a warrant article, and then if it failed, the next warrant article, people voted on it, and what it was a lesser impact, and people voted for that.
On a facility?
But I can't remember what it was. I'm just saying you can have warrant articles that,
Oh, absolutely, but I mean, on something like a facility, I don't. Because
I don't know, we just keep failing, so I'm,
I guess this is more like, hey, do the voters want to, you know, go with site A building or site B building, not like, I feel like we almost need to like,
I think,
Make a decision on the
if we're gonna offer two options, they're gonna be similarly priced. There's not gonna be a big enough price difference, and people who don't support either of them because of the price. It's not like we're gonna be able to offer a $10 million solution and a $2 million solution, and people go, I'll go with the $2 million solution. They're both gonna be, you know, $7 to $10 million, and they're both gonna get voted down.
That's kind of stuff, when we come to, I mean, in my opinion, when we come to a district, I mean, yes, we're just gleaning information out of a survey. So, I mean, yeah, we want to get an idea what they're going to vote for, but to give I mean, I just think that this, I'm against like axing, I mean, I'm for axing question 13.
Yes, I am.
Only because I think, like, some of the stuff that's in there, we're going to take care of a lot of that stuff like option A and B and hearings and things of that nature.
I don't think you build credibility offering two options. Like, you haven't committed to the best solution.
so you want to get rid of, you're all agreeing to get rid of that
I don't
question.
think we should ask the question.
All right.
13.
Does everybody agree?
Yeah, let's scrap 13, Sean, please.
Okay.
do we want to take 14 and just move it up under question 2?
Yeah, so this is, as we talked about before, we could move it after 2. The reason that it's here and the reason that it's kind of a little bit distinct is because, like I mentioned, of the kind of message testing idea. That's why it directly follows asking about people's decision-making about whether they vote yes or no on these options. It's really the Q15 element here about, okay, so I just told you all these things that, without saying explicitly, are reasons that one might say that something is warranted, that we need to have some kind of new facilities. Now that you've been asked about these things, now that you've learned these things, does that affect your likelihood of supporting facilities? But that definitely, as I mentioned here, the placement of this and whether Q15 is here at all kind of depends on whether we want to keep Q14 and whether you'd like to do that kind of message testing thing. Like I said, there's some drawbacks to it, but I certainly see the appeal for people and why they might want to try it. Of saying, well, you just voted no, and you just said, no, I don't want any of that. But did you know that, this isn't ADA compliant? And did you know that the emergency call volume is going up? And now that you know that, does that sway you at all? That's the idea here. But like I said, there's some drawbacks to it.
Well, if we keep it, I'd like to make one correction under D on that. I think we meant to say unmanned as opposed to undermanned.
Yeah.
Right, that was on my
I didn't know if it, I mean, it does make a huge.
thing. I didn't know what undermanned, what do you mean unmanned?
Well, I think back to questions 15 and 16, I think we really need a gauge of the support. And I think it's important to ask that question, those questions directly. What would you support?
I don't know about question 16. I don't know how anybody in today's day and age would think that you're gonna build anything in that.
Yeah, I feel like we have to borrow money. Unless like the money fairy drops off $10 million tomorrow, we're borrowing money for this building, if the building is happening.
Yeah,
That's
so-
what the chief mentioned when we spoke earlier, so I mentioned that that's probably something that wouldn't seem very easy to comment. If that's unavoidable, then no reason really to ask about it.
Can I back up to D, the Park Street station? Instead of saying unmanned, should we say unstaffed?
Staff. Staff.
Okay, so
Definitely want to be PC.
we're gonna
I hear you.
scrap 16.
That's all.
Is it, any more conversation on 15?
Well, if we're gonna do that process, which Sean explained, then I like 50.
Then you like 15. I like 15 also.
Right.
16 is. we're gonna borrow money
Irrelevant, because we're gonna
regardless.
borrow it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so let's scrap 16, Sean.
And we'll keep deliberating on 14 and 15, sounds like?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, go on for now. Q17, this is talking about the building committee. This is a similar idea to Q15, where we're asking, hey, with this extra context about something that was recommended by the building committee in 2019, does that make you more likely to support that option? But again, that's something that from conversation with the chief, we might want to consider cutting for various reasons. But again, leave it up to you, all of you guys, you'll know better than me.
Was that the committee's recommendation, or was that I thought that was the commissioner's directive?
No,
Well,
That's
it's
what the
it was
committee,
both.
it was the committee recommendation to the commission.
so many assumptions or facts about that have changed.
Yeah, I would argue that in
What's
light
the
of
recommendation?
the reports from Lorero, it's not worth including.
that Park Street would be cheaper, because we own it.
And that's why that's one of the ones that I highlighted, because I thought, I find that question to be leading.
Well,
It-
when
it-
we did RFQ.
What was that, Sean?
Sorry.
It kind of is. Like I said, that's the idea, actually, is that it's kind of a message testing thing, that it's saying, you probably didn't know this, but this committee suggested that we do this. Does knowing that make you decide, if they suggested, then let's go with that option? That's the idea there, is, like I said, the message testing idea. But if it's not relevant now, if it was 5 years ago, or if it's not clear that that is exactly what they said, then we can certainly get, but that's the idea.
I mean, the RFQ was based on that. When we went out for RFQ, it was based on that.
It was, yeah.
Yes, but
And we changed it midstream after selecting the contractor.
And we have learned things since the RFQ was bid and, we accepted Guerrero.
I
If we're
mean,
gonna
I'm
include
okay
that
with getting
question-
rid of it. I mean, because it does lead, but I'm just saying, we went down a path.
If the question's included, we should also include the cost evaluations from Guerrero to say, okay, this is what the commission recommended in 2019. That being said, based on more recent findings, it's the more expensive of the two
But it's
options we
not,
have.
when you consider the value of Center Street, we've been through this.
Or we could
It's
just
not.
say it's not the lower.
It's not the lower
I mean,
cost
to
option.
say it's just not the least.
I think if you're gonna change the
It is.
question, you invalidate the reason why we're asking the question.
Yeah, I would say there's no reason to ask the question since,
I'm gonna
Let's get rid,
I'm gonna
agree to, let's get rid of
defer to
question
Lisa,
17.
as she was on the
Right.
committee.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's why that came up, because that's where we were headed down a path. But I think in the survey, it's not really, I think we can get rid of it. Otherwise, we're gonna be digging up bones.
But that's what I'm saying, I think it'll be like, well, if they recommended this, why are they doing a survey and asking us about it? And that's where I was going, not to get into the weeds about
Right.
who said what,
Who
and
said
who did what.
Right, let's get rid of it, if everybody agrees.
so I'm not, similar vein, I'm concerned about the fact that we said we've been trying to build a fire station since 1986. I think that was in question 2. because,
I don't even like that opinion, to be honest with you, we didn't talk enough about it.
yeah, no.
But I thought we were gonna go into this
Because that-
after we
that
go
just
through the
makes,
questions.
like, if, as a district, we haven't been able to build a fire station in 40 years of trying, that just doesn't make us look good.
The truth hurts, doesn't it?
And-
But
And I would argue, like,
Sorry.
2010 is when there was the whole kerfuffle about, do we
Okay,
want to have a
we
district?
can discuss that. I want to
Yeah.
focus on
Yeah,
Sean's
let's-
expertise.
yeah.
So,
18.
All right, so we'll provisionally cut Q17. One thing with the process, with this whole process, is that I got previous drafts saved. So if there's anything where you say, you know what, we decided we actually really liked this one, we can always just go back and put it back in. So just because we're cutting something doesn't mean it's completely dead, if we change our minds, but we'll cut it for now. We're making some good progress here. I think we're down to only about 5 pages, I believe. This word is updating correctly for me.
we're going to lose half of the first page, right?
Well, let's keep going.
I think that's almost down to 4, actually, so I think we're already almost there.
All right.
Did you already delete the paragraph on the first page?
No.
No, actually. So we might have some more room to play with if you want to add some more stuff in or whatever else we need to do. So we're doing pretty well here.
Yeah,
In light of that, like I said, Q18 here, these are 18 and 19. I mentioned that they're mostly contextual. They might be helpful almost as pseudo-demographic questions where you might be able to differentiate between people who are much more engaged and people who aren't. But in places, in situations in which we're running low on space, these might be things that would be nice to know but isn't essential and you could cut. Up to you guys about how you'd like to handle that.
So between 18 and 19, I think 19 has more value. I think we would want to know what results we're getting from people who attend meetings versus people who don't, given who's more
All
likely to
7?
vote.
Except,
Yeah.
how
What's
many,
the purpose of question 18?
So
What are we trying to glean from that?
yeah, so this is kind of to help a little bit with just the problem with these types of surveys in the first place, is that you're definitely going to get people who are very heavily invested to participate. And we want to make sure that that's not the only people we got to participate. So if everyone who takes a survey knows at least a couple of people who work for the fire and EMS service, you're probably getting a little bit more kind of pro what you're looking for view than most people overall, compared to the people who probably don't know people on the fire department. So that's the idea here, is that it's kind of a little bit of a check to make sure, or to see a little more, even just than the demographics, about who's taking the survey and whether you're doing well in the survey only because these are the people who are heavily invested, know you guys personally, and might say, well, I know these people, of course I know they need better facilities. Their opinions might be distinct from people who don't.
I guess I think question 19 has got tremendous value. Question 18, I don't know.
I understand why it's there, it's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
no.
similar to 21 as well, like 18 and 21, it's almost like a demographic thing, and to that point, I don't know how you differentiate in a survey when you start doing all this stuff. I mean, yeah, that they'll come out and say, oh, yes, I know, and that probably does answer the question why I said, build, 10 million, boom, boom, boom. Well, seriously, I mean, you got a family member that was revived, could have died, yeah,
But is
They
it
love
going to help us?
exactly. I mean, because they're still gonna answer probably all positive up in the other ones. I mean, does it really matter why to that point?
Well, I guess maybe
And on
we
the
might
other
want
hand,
to weight those responses differently.
yeah, and on the other hand, you might actually don't want it to be over-determined, because I don't know about Tilton and Northfield, but in Moultonborough, because we have a all-volunteer too, where I grew up, I think if people took this, almost literally no one would say 0, because you'd be like, well, I know at least one person, obviously, like my sister dated one of them, sort of thing. So that might make it less useful, so we can certainly cut that, and we could rely a little bit more on Q21 to see about people's interactions with the fire department, and that also is helpful for Q22, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, like I said, Q18 is definitely one of those like nice to to have on here, but it's not, I don't think it's essential.
I would agree.
Why don't we scratch 18 then, Sean, please?
Q19, the fire district, that,
That one I think is important.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
20, definitely.
So Q20, how people receive information and updates. This is kind of a standard one that we usually put on surveys of this type. Helps you guys figure out how people get their information,
Mhm.
I think that's good.
and which things they prefer, how they prefer to do that.
Do you not ask about the district's website?
That can be on here.
I don't know if it should be, but.
Yeah.
It could be, because we can, I can
TNFD.org.
put all kinds of information on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole first paragraph.
Yes,
would be-
I was sitting
A
there,
link to it,
I was
yeah.
gonna say, we're gonna put that on the website too.
Yeah, why don't we put website on that,
And,
TNFD website.
put that in. In Q21, as I mentioned, this is kind of also a little bit of a pseudo-demographic. It's helpful for the whole survey as a whole, but then it's also quite helpful, I think, for Q22. This is where we're getting at kind of ratings of the fire and EMS services, and this can be very helpful for informing your impressions of their ratings here. As I've mentioned, oftentimes people can have opinions that aren't either they're ambivalent about, they don't know, or that are just really uninformed. We see that quite often in things that we ask about, that people who we don't think really would have any reason to have any opinion whatsoever on something, they still do. So even if people say, yeah, I haven't in the last 10 years, neither me nor anyone I know has needed them, they might still have an opinion for whatever reason about these things. So that's why, among the reasons that I think Q21 is helpful, assuming that Q22 is useful for all of you.
Now, Q22 says response time in Tilton. What about response time in Northfield?
You can get rid of that.
Just
Say response time. I think at one point I was trying to split those out, but then realized that that's just way too complicated to do, so.
I live in Northfield, but if I'm having a heart attack in Tilton, or the response time is good.
Where does it say just tell them?
It's gone.
I'm assuming there's value in having the service ranking broken out into the 4 subsections versus just very good or, good, fair, poor for the department overall.
Yeah, I think it's helpful just because it allows you to differentiate a little bit. If you wanted to go the route of just saying, rate us overall, then you might want to have a follow-up and try to get a little bit into why. And this, in some ways, does that ahead of time and does it a little bit more of a channeled way.
I like this question personally,
I
because
think it's a good one.
I
it's
mean,
good for me to know too.
it's good for a district meeting too,
Ah.
because once we take it to the district meeting, like, well, we understand you don't like the cost, but you did say,
Right.
you overwhelmingly said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's what will be really helpful here is that cost effectiveness, because you could see some differences there. From when we've asked this question in other towns, people are generally pretty wildly enthusiastic about their fire departments, police, local services like that. People, in New Hampshire at least, when we've done them, people are often very positive. And that will be something that will be helpful for you to be able to not just intuit, but actually be able to say, we did a survey and people really like the work we do. And you very well might even get people saying, I think you're actually quite cost effective, and that would be okay too. But if it's not, or if that's a little bit lower, which it might be, then that might give you a little bit more information about people's perceptions. Someone saying that I don't think you're doing a good job because you're spending too much money is very different from I don't think you're doing a good job because I don't think you do a good job putting out fires and taking care of people. So I think splitting it out here is helpful. And I think looking at things, we do have the space to do so that's probably something we can do. I can cut this down a little bit as well, because there's a little bit of extra space in here and things like that. But it's looking like we're not going to have to worry too much about that, but of course, there's always, if there's anything that's missing from here, you can always, of course, welcome to mention that later when you've had some more time to think about it and move through it again, because we probably will have a little bit of room for a few additional things, particularly if there's still some things we're going to cut out of guess. Because that brings us to Q23, which is just, do you have any additional comments? This, you almost definitely want to leave room for it. Like I said, if you don't leave room, some people will find room for it. Have some thoughts that they'll want to throw in there. And just giving them a place to channel it and put it into a specific box that our interviewers can find it and type it in. That's all very helpful. But most people will just leave this blank or just say no comments or just thank you or something like that.
So are we within our 4 pages?
I believe so. I'm going to check again because Word is,
Funny.
not helping. It's not updating me. I think it's because of the track changes. So that's 2, that's 3. Yeah, that's 4. Okay, so then there's 5. All right, so we still have a little ways to go. I forgot about my own thing of we have the last one here. So we still have a little bit of ways to go, but not too much. And I think some of this we can just be getting rid of that. And we can condense a few other places. But I think the main thing is if we adjudicating this Q2 and Q14, I think that's probably, and then a little condensing that I can do elsewhere, I think that's probably going to get us all, or at the very least most of the way there. Because those 3 things are taking up a lot of space right now. So depending on what we decide on that, we should be getting pretty close. And I think it's going to make that a little small.
Let's go through the demographics.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for our purpose, I don't know as though all the demographics are necessary.
Okay, that'll help you more.
I don't think, gender, I don't think matters.
It doesn't really matter how long someone lived here. I mean, I moved here yesterday, I'm gonna be a district and vote.
You know what?
Yeah, that one I would definitely leave in. That's one in these contexts where we see the biggest distinctions.
Really? Where you lived? How long?
It's how long you live there. The owner-rent thing, we often also see some differences.
Mhm.
I don't know if there might not be sufficient places to rent. That's certainly the case where I grew up. That when you move this, because it'd be like, where are you renting? But if that might be more useful to get rid of than years. But years lived, we often just see huge differences between kind of the really entrenched people and newcomers.
Do we want to find out who, the person filling out the survey, whether they live in Tilton or Northfield?
We asked that up above.
Yes, that's question number 2, I think.
Number 1.
Number 1.
One.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's kind of just to get people going
Yeah.
into the survey. It normally would be down here, but
Easy question to answer.
It is.
So-
Number 1.
Here, so D2, the demographics for gender, and also D5, the education level. How do you guys feel about getting rid of 5 also?
Yeah.
How does that help us?
So that one you might want to keep in there because we also see some pretty big distinctions there.
I'm gonna say-
There's kind of increasing polarization based on education, and we're not asking anything about politics in here, which makes sense because that can be, a little bit hot if people, if it's not directly related to that. But education can be helpful for understanding kind of people's overall views. It's something we typically include. You could cut it if you want, but like I said, that's something that kind of gets at that, gets a little bit at partisanship in an indirect way, and kind of helps you with a little bit better understanding about who's opposed and who's for this thing.
Sean, how often, I like the prefer not to say, how often do you see people selecting that?
Not very often. The one where you do get a lot of people who don't answer it, and note that I did not put in a prefer not to say because I don't want to encourage them, is income. A lot of people will leave this blank. Even in the surveys that we do of the general public, where we do it online, and they've opted into taking surveys from us, I think it's usually like 14 or 15% of people just opt out of answering it. But yeah, putting it in here for education, which sometimes can be a little more touchy, is usually a good idea. But most times people answer this. It's just that household income one, people can be a little bit reticent.
Do we want to cut the household income then? If only
No.
14% of people
No, 14% of the people select prefer not to say.
For income,
Uh,
if it was included in your income.
Yeah, I probably would keep it. I mean, income is also going to be a helpful thing for you, particularly because if in your experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, if in your experience one of the big objections is the cost, that could certainly be interesting. Although actually, there are fewer distinctions based on income than you think with questions like this in town surveys when we're asking about big purchases. We did our statewide surveys recently, and we asked, or just this month, and we asked people, how well they're doing economically and things like that. And you would think there would be really big distinctions in how people think they're doing based on their income, and there aren't huge ones. There's relatively small. Expectations play a lot, I think, in people's kind of perceptions of their household income. So people differ on that less than you'd think, but it's still when something, especially like building something is being asked, it's probably something you want to include and see if there are differences.
When you decide to put these numbers in here, the up to 25, then 35,000, stuff like that, do you look at the median household income for the area before you set those parameters, or is that just your standard parameter?
That's just the standard, and it is probably a little outdated at this point with inflation. This is kind of, there's not many people, although there's actually more than you think because of older people.
Yeah,
Might just be-
absolutely.
Yeah, so this is probably still works. We could, if you want to, add another upper tier option here. Some of our surveys, we've switched to this option being 150 to 199 and then 200 or more. If you think that's worthwhile, we can certainly do that.
I think it's important here.
These don't correlate with tax brackets, do they?
Where we sit.
Excuse me?
So these don't correlate to like the income tax bracket ranges, right?
No, they're just kind of relatively easy to kind of keep in your mind ranges.
So my take as to where we're at, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll speak loud so you can hear Sean, is that first verbiage section we need to work on. We've narrowed this down, and Sean has mentioned that he might be able to reformat a little bit on some of this to get it to fit better.
And we're
Is-
going to look at combining question 2 and 14
Yeah.
to whatever extent we can.
Right. So that's what I think, for me, that's what I see
Yep.
where we're at.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, other than he mentioned that where 14 was there on purpose,
On
kind of a revisiting of facts. Whereas if you get the whole big list of facts up front, people forget as they go along, so I'm inclined to say leave it where it is.
Well, I am too, and maybe we just need to look at the individual questions in each of those sections.
Right.
So I think the Q2 and what we have in the introduction, those probably have the most direct overlap. The ones down in Q14, these are ones where effectively, again, we're not saying this, but effectively I think these are things where these are arguments you could be making in favor of doing something, right? And effectively asking people, now that I've told you that, does that sway you any further in how you feel about all this? Q2, this is more being framed in terms of kind of the historical facts about kind of the setup of the fire department there. Some of them certainly kind of overlap with what we saw elsewhere and could be germane to people's decision making. But do they know that you're considering building a new fire facility for today? That might be useful to know, but we probably don't also need to mention something about that up here. I don't know if we do, but an 11-member call company, people need to know that. People need to know a lot of those things that I think maybe we could. And this one is a good example that it's a special district government, which I'll tell you, people don't know what that is. So that might be something where you can cut in both places because people are going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I get that you're distinct from the town maybe, but I don't know what a special member district or special district is. So this, I think, is a good place to really work to consider whether we want to keep both of these, and if so, eliminating overlap between the two. Like I said, I would probably suggest cutting up here because I don't think think we're getting almost any bang for our buck here because you're not getting actually any responses, and I think most people are just going to skip over this. And then the other big decision would be whether you want to keep any version of Q14, because this is, like I said, this message testing idea, which might be interesting to you, it might be important, it might kind of help you in how you deploy your arguments and what you're trying to put forward to people about why this is important that you get new facilities. On the other hand, you might say, we know what we need to tell people, we've used these arguments before and we don't really need to test them. Then you can cut this and probably Q15 higher. So I think those are the big places that we can that still need some work, and they're the places that take up the most space. So that resolving kind of those issues will put us really close, I think, to where we need to be, or at least give us a better idea of if we don't decide to cut anything, what else we can do in terms of cutting things.
Well, except I think it's important to say how much staff we want, no? One thing on consistency on the first paragraph, or it's the third, but in some places we say 18 full-time, and then we go 4 shifts of 4, and we spell out the word 4. And like if you go down, I think we should be consistent. If we're going to say there's 4, we should use the number 4 versus spelling it out.
I think
You can kind of
Anything under
10,
10,
you
you
spell
spell anything.
anything over 10.
Is that what,
Yes,
really, that's the rule?
That's the rule.
It's annoying, but it's a rule.
Okay.
I
It
hate
just, to me, it looked inconsistent. I'm like, okay, we've got 18 here and 4 here.
I don't know whether to be surprised or but you didn't know that. That's the engineer in you.
Well, I don't know that, I don't know their rule, we always were consistent. If you're using a number, you use a number. If you're spelling it out, you're spelling it out. But now there's some new word. Where's that
As
from?
long as I've been alive, I've been aware of that. But,
Yeah.
Really?
yeah.
Since I started
Wow.
writing, it's
Okay.
one of the first things I slapped my wrist on.
I must like
Okay.
numbers better.
Sean, so we basically need to cut about half a page out?
Thereabouts, yeah, I would say so, because there's still some places where I can cut and I can reduce things down. So yeah, I would say around half of the page, which, like I said, this is, even just Q14 and Q2 together are probably about half a page. This is maybe a quarter. So we got some things to adjudicate, but I think we're within range once we decide what we'd like to do. There's also the possibility that you want to keep all of them and just reduce some of them down a little bit. And say that particular item isn't important, so we can get rid of that one or that one.
Can we look at the first paragraph for a second? So I'm thinking that we could cut that first paragraph except for the last 2 sentences.
Yeah, I mean, that's a discussion for us to have. What I'm trying to do is optimize
Right.
Sean's time.
I think also when you change Tilton, Northfield Fire and EMS to TNFD,
Right.
and throughout the whole document, you're gonna get some space, because every one of those lines is gonna be one line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're in one of the comments.
I mean, we could do that as a behind the place right now and just see what it
Well, Sean, would it be fair to ask you to just clean up what we've just discussed?
Yep.
And then send that to the chief so we can see what it looks like, and in the meantime, we'll work on all that verbiage at the top.
Absolutely.
Can, like, when you send it to me, this is what I see when I open up a Word document, but when I try to print it or change it to a PDF, it gets all messed up. How-
Are you able to send it to us as a PDF?
I can. I don't think that'll help with the comments. It's the only problem.
Oh.
Well, the comments won't typically,
I can send you those separately, I suppose, and just say, you know, in Q1 this, but you know, we usually just do it this way, so it's a little bit easier. Especially if there's multiple of you, sometimes you can just.
Well,
kind
can
of
anyone
combine.
not
It's
use
a,
Word?
it's a print, when you do the word, it's the way you print it. If you say print without comments,
Yeah.
you get the actual survey.
Okay, all right.
It's a printer command.
I can make
Okay. All right, Sean, I think we've got our work cut out for us, and thank you very much for your time and effort, and the chief will be in touch in the next couple of days, probably. Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate your help.
Yes, thank you.
Good night.
Good night, thanks.
So, your concern, let's talk about the first paragraph. What do you want to keep, what do you?
Well, I feel like we can almost just take those last two sentences and add it to the small section below it. Because I feel like there's a lot of value in that smaller paragraph, as
So you're
Dennis
starting
said.
with the full-time staff is located, that's the sentence you want to keep?
Yeah, I feel like there's value in letting people know that the full-time staff are at one station and the call staff are at another station.
So you just want to move it to that next paragraph?
Yeah.
For readability?
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Here it is. So,
So the full-time staff sentence, third line up in the first
The last line of the first paragraph.
paragraph. Up, one,
Right after
right after
available.
available. Yeah,
There you
Right
go.
there.
yeah,
Yeah, move it to the next paragraph. Or hit enter and it'll do it, right? And then you
Yeah.
can backspace. Then you backspace after staff
Yeah.
and it'll pull that.
I think it's, I kind of like the second sentence.
The 5 or 6 separate entity.
Yeah,
It's not just me, all the spaces are periods, right?
Well, it's just formatting.
Yes,
Okay.
Chief, you can check
Yes.
that off.
He's using the formatting.
There it is.
We go from the district to TNFD, swapping, don't we?
well, he's going to change the survey to be TNFD everywhere.
Yeah, but in this paragraph, see how we go?
Right. Well,
TNFD
we're
or the
going to,
district?
I think we're going to
We're working
scratch
on
the
this.
second sentence. I'm sorry, scratch the third one.
Where we have 2 fire stations?
Yes.
And we're doing that because it's down in question 2? No, it's not.
Yep, whatever that was. I'm trying to get some room here so I can. So. You tell me what you guys want on this and I'll.
My comment was only where we say, some places we say TNFD and some places we say district.
In this, I only say Tilton Northfield Fire District out front, and then I make, put the parentheses saying TNFD, so you know what I'm referring to, because that's proper
Right.
writing. And then the district is,
Different
Not-
than TNFD?
yeah, it is and it isn't. It's, TNFD is part of the district, but the district is like the 2 towns, it's the area, it's the form of government, it's the fire department, it's the organization
Okay.
beyond, the fire trucks and the people that go on.
All right. I guess if I read
So,
it.
so are we trying to lose, I guess, what are we trying to keep out of that first? What is the message in that first paragraph that we want to keep?
Well, I like letting them know that Center Street is staffed with a certain number of personnel and that Park Street's not. Right up front.
Do we need to tell people it's a special village district
No,
covering?
me personally, I would do the Tilton Northfield Fire District, TFND, has 2 fire stations.
Yes.
Center Street Fire Station, Stafford, and eliminate everything between them. And
You don't
then-
want to explain it's a special village district?
Nobody,
Okay.
they're gonna know or care.
Yeah, like.
Are you gonna cause confusion? Wait a minute, what does that mean? You and I know what that means, but does it help?
Probably not.
Delete that part there.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I think the word has, but.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
724,
I'll put has back in.
Yeah.
Does everybody agree to get rid of that? And then go back and add has. Nope.
We got an extra space, but we need one. What's the combination department mean?
So that's firefighting speak. Combination department is a department that has both full-time members and part-time members. A career department is fully 100% full-time members, and a call or volunteer fire department doesn't have any full-time people.
So should we, Tilton Norfolk Fire Department is a combination department with 18 full-time firefighters / EMS personnel and 10 call firefighters. You've got them somewhere else in there. You've got 11 members. I think it's only 10, isn't
That's
it?
11 in the document.
So, it's 11, well, that was his document. I don't know where that came from. We have 10 right now. But that can change. Next month I could have 12 or I could have 9. That's,
And even the full-time could change
But
too.
going back to Lisa's comment, it's a combined department, so you then go on and talk about the full-time, and then you leave the other part of that combined till the last sentence.
I'm thinking if you're not gonna explain the combination department, don't use it.
don't use the word, the term.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, because I had to ask, what do you
All right,
mean by
so
combination
would you go, like,
department?
Tilton Norfolk Fire Department has 18 full-time,
And 11 columns.
And 11.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, you could all.
in
you could
addition to
do-
the chief and deputy chief.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do TNFD as a combination department with 18 full-time fire EMS personnel and 10 call company.
But we're trying to reduce verbiage, so
Right, but then
anything that's repetitive, we should get rid of.
But then I would say remove including the chief.
Well, get rid of the word
Administrative assistant.
including
It's
the,
18
put in
full-time.
a chief and a deputy chief,
Right,
and
separate all of
11
them.
call, 11 member call company, or something along those lines,
Include all of the personnel.
in that
Right.
sentence.
Right.
It's 18 full-time EMS
Right.
personnel.
Chief, comma, deputy chief, comma, administrator.
You don't even need to say including the chief and deputy chief, do
Yeah.
you?
No,
Yeah.
because we're in that
You're
18.
in that 18, and
And
then say,
then we're also,
and 10 call, or however you want to call
okay,
it.
So,
Does that make sense?
So-
That cuts it.
comma.
How do you like this by committee, chief? Keeping up over there?
Holding one hand, if I let go of this, it's going to slide right out.
Can you, you want me to move this table over, or won't it go?
Well, I have to, for it to stay up here, it has to be hooked to this.
All right, so you're gonna delete including the chief and deputy chief,
Mhm.
right? That simplifies everything right up there.
Well, the 18 also includes the administrative manager and assistant.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
No.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Do we need
let's
the
reduce
working
the,
hours?
let's reduce the verbiage, you get administrative manager and assistant in that same sentence.
Well,
Why don't
one's
we just,
full-time and one's part-time.
why don't,
Yeah, but get rid of the district also employees.
Oh.
Just include that
Oh,
all.
18
As-
full-time, comma, 10
Right,
comma, members, comma,
And a full-time administrative.
yeah.
or 2 administrative assistants?
I
Do we
think-
clear that
Full-time
one's
and
part-time,
part-time.
one's part-time?
Or I was thinking, fire EMS personnel, comma,
comma,
Get rid of the
That-
and, 10
that
call,
space in
10 call members, comma,
comma,
a full-time administrative assistant and full-time administrative manager and part-time assistant.
yeah, go. Comma. There you go.
We need a
You get a
comma
spa-
after.
space out.
I'll fix it when I
You'll
get back
fix
to the
that.
office.
Right.
The full-time are doing 4 shifts.
Okay, get rid of the chief, deputy chief, work regular business hours, get rid of that sentence. And the last one also, right?
Yeah, so we don't need really everything up to the rotating basis.
Delete all that?
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
do
then
we
does the
want to get
4
rid of the
shifts make
full-time
sense?
personnel are divided into 4 shifts?
Do we even need that?
Only the fact that it explains how you divvy up 18 people. They say, oh, 18, because I was speaking to somebody the other day,
Yeah, they think.
7
we got 18.
paramedics. You got, oh, it was in the budget meeting. You got 7, why do you have 7 people, 7 paramedics on duty at once? No, they're spread out.
So it should be the full, when you say personnel, full-time personnel, obviously you're full-time, you're not in the 4 shifts.
Right.
Although we're cutting hairs, right? That,
Well, we could say full-time firefighters are divided into 4 shifts.
Yeah, get rid of personnel and put
or,
firefighters.
fire slash, or you could put the fire/EMS personnel, because you, right? Repeat what you had before.
18 full-time members, 10 call members?
Yeah, I'm just saying, but on that last line, the full-time fire/EMS personnel are divided into 4 shifts.
So we're adding,
You're at, right in there, I'm saying, that clarifies it, right?
Yeah.
But fire/EMS, because that's basically saying the 18 people, basically, right?
Okay, and at the end of that sentence, works on, and responds to 2,200 incidents per year.
Oh, so you can eliminate that whole
Right.
sentence.
I'm just trying to combine any repetitive words like the personnel or,
And then you get into the percentages, so then it's in the wrong spot.
so I can change this out here.
so get, yeah, take it right out to the beginning of that paragraph.
So what do we do with that last line, because it doesn't really, when you say 70% of those incidents, you bring it up above?
So I feel like
I can move it up above,
we should,
if that's what you want to do.
maybe we want to say where the full-time and call center responds from before we do the full-time.
I'm thinking
Shifts.
scrap those 2 sentences.
Get rid of the approximately 70%?
No, the first 2 sentences of that second paragraph.
Well,
Well, I think the point is,
it's, the
we
point
need
is
to
that
tell people which station the full-time staff and the call staff.
there's a lot of people that think there's people inside the Park Street Fire Station all the time.
I can tell you, when I first moved here, I would go there to get a fire permit, and I'm like, where the hell are all the firefighters? Because I didn't know, because I had just moved here. So there probably are a lot
We
of
get
people that
people-
have no idea.
We get people that call us on the phone and say, I'm outside the fire station and I can't get in. And we'll look in the camera and say, there's nobody here. I go, where are you? I'm right outside the fire station. Which one? You have two?
But we
There's a
answered the
lot.
question sort of at the top. The Center Street Fire Station, staff 724 with 4 personnel.
Maybe we should turn that into 4 career personnel or full-time?
All right, it's 260, staff 724 with 4 personnel. And Park Station generally on staff.
Oh, yeah, the 4 personnel confuses.
That's confusing. So down there, you could say, and the Park Street Station, generally on staff. And the Park Street, the Park Street Station is only a garage and has no accommodations, and is generally on staff. And then you could get rid of that first 2 sentences, 3 sentences.
Or, screw it all up for you right now, I can write it all down and bring it back. But, I mean, maybe to make it even more concise, maybe like the Tilton Millfield Fire District, TNFD, is staffed by 24/7, or is staffed by 18 full-time fire and EMS personnel, 10 call members, administrative, yada, yada, yada.
And then go into the 2 stations.
Or something, yeah, going to the, but the Tilton Millfield Fires. But I want to put it so you can put it like, put all that in one thing, is headquartered at the Center Street Station in Tilton. The district has a second station that operates as a garage.
That
And
houses,
on Park Street,
houses equipment and no accommodations for staff. I think, yeah,
Well, would it be worthwhile for, because, you know, that's the way I would do this. I would just.
separate the 2 stations.
I would just retype it out.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean,
We actually wrote this description for something,
I mean,
the
you know,
RFQ.
Chief, just to be
Well, it was
nitpicky, it's
separate.
the UNH survey, not the UHN survey.
Oh, yeah.
At the title at
Very
the top.
Okay,
I noticed they had Raymond on their flyer too.
yeah,
I meant to,
I already talked to him about that. He says, yeah, it's just a fill for now.
right.
you're right.
Well, honestly, the first sentence of the first paragraph and the first 2 sentences of the second paragraph say the same thing.
They do.
Yes.
And I'd also consider getting rid of the statistics at the bottom of the second paragraph.
I feel,
Keep the 2/3, 1/3,
And
But-
stop there.
and yeah, and the rest of it,
Because, right, do I know where the village district is, and east of the village
Right.
district?
right?
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that, but yeah.
You'd have to define the village district.
We got a nice map that shows all that.
But it won't fit on
It
4
won't be
pages.
on our thing, right.
Yeah, keep going to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
into
so
2023.
Well, you're right there, yep.
it's hard to get it.
So
And
we
then
just,
if we can just combine the first 2 sentences of the second paragraph into the first sentence of the first paragraph, I think you gotta go.
I would clean up the first sentence there. It says the Center Street Fire Station staff is staffed 24/7. Get rid of with 4 personnel. And the Park Street Station get rid of with 4 personnel. And the Park Street Station is generally unstaffed. Does that solve?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. Makes it much more direct.
So we don't need the full-time staff is located responsible for Park Street,
No,
the call
get rid of
company
the
responsible
comma.
for Park
It-
Street.
We're jumping sentences, he hasn't finished the
Back
first
to the
sentence.
first sentence, chief.
Okay.
Jen, where it says Park
Park
Street
Street
Station,
Station.
comma, get rid of the comma,
And say
and put
is.
is. Perfect.
Is it generally, or is it just on staff?
It's unstaffed, but sometimes, when it's staffed, is if we have a call, and maybe a couple call firefighters showed up, and sometimes they're sitting there for 40 minutes, waiting for the call to clear up, because they don't have to go out on the call, then there might be a couple people there. But it's not, that's the only time there's anybody there. unless, like today, I went there to, a bolt broke in my car, and I know that's where the bolts are, so I went there and fixed the car and
Or I've seen people, they're washing the
washing
trucks
the
and
trucks.
stuff.
We can't wash the trucks at Center Street because there's no drains,
Right.
so we have to wash them at Park Street.
But I'm just asking, does the word generally mean anything in that sentence? I see what you're
So get rid
saying.
of the first two sentences of the second paragraph. Where Northfield, right there, go back to the beginning. I think you can scrap that, right?
Well, I
Because that's
think
what
it's
we're
important to
combining
say
into-
the call company responds from Park Street. It
So
doesn't
we,
say that anywhere else.
so we could update the first sentence to, and the Park Street Fire Station is used by call firefighters?
Well,
Because
actually,
that's where they respond from,
Yeah.
right? They go to that station.
on
But
that
what does that
second,
matter? What does that really matter?
it
That,
explains why Park Street's there and where they respond from. It does matter, because if somebody's coming to your house from Park Street, it doesn't matter that the call company,
So
No, it
what
doesn't.
happens is,
what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter that we state it here.
From response time, I don't think it matters for most calls, because if it's the first call and they're coming from Center Street, they're gonna get to the call before your call firefighters show up at the station and then leave. Now, if the call firefighters are sitting there because the full-time guys are out, then maybe they maybe would get there. But for the purposes of the survey, I'm not sure
It's
that it
not.
matters.
it's not relative, you're probably right.
I was thinking, just like, I cut up real quick, I was writing it down to get my thoughts straight, but I was thinking like, the Tilton-Moorfield Fire District, TNFD, is staffed by 18 full-time fire/EMS personnel, a full-time admin manager and part-time assistant, and operate 24/7 out of the Center Street Fire Station. The Park Street Station houses equipment where 10 call members operate from as well, or two, however. It's something like, that would cut like, that answers the two.
Right.
but they're not there.
They don't operate.
It's-
Well, yeah.
They have a different
Uh,
person.
On that second paragraph, do we all agree he can get rid of the very first line
Yeah.
and leave the call company there for a second? You see what I'm saying? Because we've already defined that the full-time staff,
Oh, wrong way.
it's because you're looking at the screen up there instead of your screen.
And I like to use a mouse and not the touchpad and all
Oh.
that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So we're getting rid of this part here.
No, the up one
Sentence
line.
before
Just
that,
the first sentence of the
The
first.
first
All right.
sentence
Second
of the
paragraph.
second paragraph, we've already kind of defined that, right? See, the 70% and all that goes with that 2,200.
Yeah, it does. I
So we
agree.
just have to get what the context is of those first two sentences
Right.
reworded up into the first paragraph.
And it's,
So
is
that
it,
we say Park Street Station only once.
and are those 2,200 incidents only from Center Street? Because that's what we put up there in this.
Well,
You didn't have it that
they-
way originally.
we don't account for incidents, well, we count all incidents, but everything is assumed that it's from Center Street because there are hardly any calls that actually originate with the first responders from Park Street.
So move not just that one, Chief, but the last one also, and combine them into one sentence.
Approximately 70% of those incidents are emergency
With 2/3
service. With
being within Tilton and 1/3 in Northfield.
Is that accurate? It's 60/40.
This past year, no, that's the funding. Wait a second, it's 60, let me go to the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It has all the answers.
This year?
$60-40 this year, last year, I should say. Yeah.
That adds more words.
No, you just you
Approximately
move that last sentence up and you put 60%, 40%.
Or you just do comma after services.
Yeah, that's what.
Right.
I don't know if we've actually reduced this.
You missed the 4 though.
I think we have.
The 4 on my thing is,
It's sticking,
I like
you'll
what
get it
it's
later.
not, no, it's not working. Like it does, but it's dying.
It's temperamental.
Well, the computer's old and I must hit 4 a lot.
I don't think we put a new laptop in the budget.
So now you gotta get rid of that
Not in the
last,
budget this year.
yeah, now you gotta get rid of the last paragraph on that, or the last sentence in that paragraph. And then we have to figure out, do we have a 1-line paragraph? Right?
Yep.
And the Park Street Fire Station is a garage housing
With
equipment
no-
for call?
No, I like what you're saying. And the Park Street Station is only a garage with no accommodations and is generally unstaffed. Is that too long of a sentence?
Oh,
You can stick out 2 lines in one, pretty much. Oh, I don't know, whole thing. It's my fault.
Only, I like what you said, only a garage that
With no
stores equipment.
so the first
And
sentence
has
of the
no-
first paragraph, in the Park Street Fire Station is only a garage and with no accommodations is generally unstaffed. Does that make sense?
I didn't hear the beginning of what you were saying.
What I'm thinking is it should say, the Park Street Station is only a garage that houses equipment and has no accommodations for staff.
So what
And
we're
just
trying
drop
to
the
do, Chief,
generally
is take
unstaffed.
this
Well,
sentence
it's already up above,
and
why?
put it up here.
Or you
So
want to put it up there?
at the
No,
end of
now it's-
this, and the Park Street Fire Station, somehow or another say it's only a garage and with no accommodations for staff, or with no accommodations is generally unstaffed.
And it's generally
I think it
Oh.
makes sense to say that houses equipment. It sounds weird to just say it's only a garage to me
Okay.
anyway, but I guess you're right.
No, I'm happy with that. So Chief, if you go up to that second line where it says the Park Street Station, you need the word is in front of only, in front of only. Is only a garage.
And with no accommodations,
That
Only a
garage that houses
that houses
equipment,
equipment.
because it makes it clear, that's what it's there for. Houses equipment only, and has no accommodations for staff.
And then we can get rid of is generally unstaffed.
Right,
Yeah.
No accommodations for staff.
that kind of says the same thing.
Yeah,
It's
one would
generally
infer,
Or do you want to say has no accommodations and is generally unstaffed?
I think if you do it this way, you
Just,
get rid of the generally
I
unstaffed
think
part.
you're right. Does it even have a restroom?
It does.
It does.
well, there's a bucket.
More or less.
All right.
No,
No, I think
we
that,
redid the restroom to have a shower so they can shower in there,
There's two
get the
fire
crap
So
off.
now-
yeah.
get rid of the second paragraph,
Yep.
right? And We did pare it down, see?
Woo-hoo. We got an extra only in there. And the Park Street station is only a garage that houses equipment
Yeah.
and has no accommodations for staff. Get rid of that only there, chief. Perfect.
Don't forget to hit save.
It's 18 full-time.
Mine automatically says-
Full-time.
I can open Grammarly, make sure that I.
Four shifts of for the
Who's the space after personnel? Personnel space, comma, space?
Are you happy with that? Your wording was a,
No, I'm just looking at one where it says that houses equipment and has no, just to tell it, for me, it would, that houses equipment with no accommodations for staff.
With no accommodations for staff. You're right,
With.
instead of and has.
okay, yeah, I think that.
Second line, chief, at the
Second
end.
line.
Yeah, towards the end, where it says and has, replace that with no accommodation. That's, grammatically, that's much better.
I'm not known for grammatically being good.
You came through that time.
Believe it or not, English was one of my worst subjects in school, but I wrote enough decision briefs and got my ass handed to me. It's one thing what pain does for the learning process.
Now, can you imagine, we're gonna post this video tomorrow, and people are gonna go like, oh my god, it's like a train wreck. I
This
can't
is
watch
the
it,
correct
but
punctuation.
I'm going to.
We've taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines.
Summer street station is staff.
And responds, I think, is supposed to be respond, right? Because it's a
But
plural.
these lines are like twice as long as those lines, so we reduced it by half, easy.
So they're suggesting this class
24-hour,
on the right.
4 shifts of 4 that were.
no.
No,
I
no,
like
that's-
I
I don't
like
like
that,
it.
no.
4
I
shifts
never
of
go
4
by
that
that
work
stuff.
24 hours.
That's why I sound like an idiot when I'm texting, because Apple seems to think that these words would be, you ever notice that? You
Some
look at
days
it,
it's
like,
good, and some
Yeah.
days it's horrible.
Is that how you had it? Or is it changed?
I left it the way it is, I got rid of it.
Divide into 4 shifts of 4 that work 24-hour tours on a rotating basis. Is that what you
That's what
have?
I got.
Tour is the right word?
Tours, yeah, it's a tour, it's like a tour duty.
Shift.
For duty, absolutely.
Okay. I would have said shifts.
Okay.
You could say
So-
shifts.
So that sentence that's underlined,
So the
personnel is
respond-
plural, so respond should be
Response should
singular.
be singular. It's catching
Yeah.
that.
And I think back to your comma after Tilton, chief. Get rid of that comma. That comma doesn't belong there.
Which
Last
last?
sentence.
Last sentence, 60% in Tilton,
Yeah.
comma,
Yeah,
lose the comma, keep the and.
So would the comma after services be a semicolon?
No.
Approximately 70% of those incidents are for emergency medical
Yeah, could be, I
services.
guess.
Oh, it seems like there should be a.
It's 70%.
Of the incidents are for emergency medical service.
60.
Broken down by, with.
With 60% in Tilton. Get rid
And
of the comma
40%
after
with
services.
instead of comma, right?
Yeah.
That's-
Something-
yeah.
Needed something
It
there.
was either there a colon or a with. With is okay.
Why is it not
now,
the
now
word
wants
and?
it with, add a comma.
Grammarly. That's an AI function.
I guess.
Just because it's AI doesn't mean it's right.
But that's my point.
I'm gonna go with AI's grammar better than mine probably.
Okay, so is everybody cool with that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and then Sean said he was gonna change the formatting and spacing,
I'll send him this.
and I guess the only other thing was, did we wanna do anything with question 2 and 14, or did we wanna keep them separate? I was really struggling to hear Sean, but the impression I got was that he thinks we should keep them separate, keep them where they are.
Yeah, That was what
I
he
feel
said.
like we make no more changes until we see
His
how
printout.
much
Yep.
space we're using
And
with
you're
the
gonna send
current
them
draft.
out, right?
They'll get this, I'll get him this in the morning.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's a good idea, we should,
That's
Like, we
good.
made a lot of changes, let's see
Yeah.
what, because
Yeah.
maybe
We cover a
version
bunch of
2,
stuff.
we add some questions, change some questions, now that we have a better idea of space.
one thought I had just while we were going through that, where I said we should add the website, is there anywhere on this document that it's gonna have the Tilton Northfield Fire Department website? Like, is the,
It
I mean,
is
it's looking- I was
included, it is
We could add it
included
on that
as one of the
paragraph.
questions.
Yeah, but why not in that paragraph, for more information, see TNFD?
or that right at
Right
the
in that-
beginning, where it said, right, or you can contact the chief with the phone number, does that have the,
That's in there. Yeah, I don't know if
website's
it-
in there?
It's the,
I'm gonna-
he was gonna fix it when I talked to him.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
it says email.
I'll get your email address, but we should fit the website in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I was thinking, somewhere at that question, it's like, oh, they have a website? They probably do, I should go there.
So I know in like, how do you want to receive communication, we did say we wanted the TNFD.org website there, but it would be a good idea to like add it
Have it
in
somewhere.
the beginning,
Yeah.
maybe also have it included on like that postage page that said Raymond in the example that has all the info on it.
Right under the logo, www.
Yeah, why doesn't our logo have the website on it?
What is what? I didn't get the question.
Why doesn't our
Because
logo
it's-
have the website on
It
it?
was made.
Well, don't worry about it.
Created.
We're changing from .org to .gov pretty, like,
Oh,
in this
okay,
year,
yeah.
so we're not doing anything.
I'll be careful about the
logos.
changes.
Northfield just went to .gov from .org, the town
Okay.
government.
So
I didn't
Chief,
notice.
are you gonna add the website where your name, phone number, and email? Are you gonna add the website to that?
If that's where you want it, that's well,
I
I'm gonna
think,
put it.
well, it's a great point, it's gonna be there somewhere, and that's
Somewhere
probably as
behind
good a
it.
place as any.
Yeah, that works for me.
And they can probably work on what the verbiage should be, visit our website and look at
Right.
something you said.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they're gonna correct all of the grammar and punctuation in the paragraph we wrote.
More information is available about this.
Okay, so you're gonna
Anything
send
else?
that off, and then you're gonna distribute it to us
Yes,
when he
when he
replies?
replies with everything, I'll send
So-
everybody the updated version.
Next
In
week-
Word, because it'll be in Word.
our
Can
next-
everybody use Word?
Yeah. You can also save it and upload it to Google Docs if you don't like Word, but.
Our next scheduled meeting would be on the 11th. The 12th is the district meeting is the 18th, right?
Yes.
Is there anything going on the 11th?
Let me look quickly. I have a building committee meeting. I already have it posted in my calendar,
Okay,
so.
so our next meeting will be March 11th, is that? Yeah, okay.
Do you want to hear again? So I have a fix for the speaker, but it's at my house. You want to do it here so you can look on it?
Yeah, if this room's available.
I will not be here,
Okay,
But you can probably join in
by Zoom.
by the Zoom.
Yeah.
I probably
How many
won't.
hours difference are you?
Because-
No,
oh, well,
this
she's
time
in
I'm
Florida.
Florida.
You're in
Yeah.
Florida.
I
Oh, okay.
probably will not because I'm staying with friends at their house, so,
and
on the
then,
11th anyway. Actually, I won't even get there till.
and then our next meeting would be March 25th.
Yeah.
I will not be here on the 25th. Will you be here on the 25th? 1 month from today?
I believe so.
The 11th is good, not because the 20th is probably good.
Well, on the 11th, we can figure out the next meeting date if we need to.
All right. Anything else?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes
Oh, yeah,
from the previous meeting. January 22nd?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Paul, I was just gonna ask, at the district meeting, do you want to do a short update from the committee?
I
At
think,
some time during the warrant?
I think that I will not be here for the district meeting.
Oh,
I'll be in South Carolina. But I do think it's important for there to be some
Update?
update as to what we're doing, and maybe even mention that there is a survey that's coming around, but certainly to update the district on our activities. And I can write an outline, someone else can
yeah, I can
voice
present,
it.
or somebody else in the committee if they want to, but I'm happy to. And we will be meeting the day before,
Right.
the week before.
Right.
So if you want to work on that, and then maybe we can all talk about it at the next
Sure.
meeting.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I have a feeling the meeting might run long, so it doesn't have to be
Right.
very long.
It's just gonna be bullet points.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, small town.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. It is
7:49.
7:49. Thank you, Court.